If you've ever wanted to dress your AR-15 up like Eugene Stoner's large adult son, then stick around, because today we're taking a look at an AR-18 inspired upper receiver from the good folks at Brownells. What is up, guys? My name is John with PewPewTactical.com, your definitive source for gun reviews, gear guides, and all things that go bang. While the AR-15 is inarguably the most common and widespread rifle found in the United States today, Armalite didn't merely stop there. In the wake of Armalite's decision to sell the AR-15 design to Colt, who then were able to sell the design to the US military, given their better industry connections and manufacturing capacity, Armalite began sketching out plans for what would become the AR-18, a follow-up rifle that would address the weaker points of the AR-15's design while also being faster and cheaper to produce. The end result? A short-stroke gas piston rifle with a rotating bolt, side-charging steel sheet metal stamped receivers, a side-folding stock, and a distinct lack of a buffer tube, all chambered in 5.56 NATO. Unfortunately, the powers that be weren't about to go all in on a completely new design after the recent adoption of the AR-15, and while close to 24,000 civilian AR-180s were produced, no major military or police force ended up adopting the rifle. As is often the case throughout history, the rifle was just a little bit too far ahead of its time for its own good. However, as it became clear that a lightweight, accurate, select-fire rifle utilizing a short-stroke gas piston was actually a viable platform, many more contemporary small arms designers have looked to the AR-18 for inspiration, or in some cases have just blatantly taken the gas system from the elder Armalite gun almost to a T. From Remington's ACR, to H&K's 416 and G36 series of rifles, to FN SCARs and FN 2000s, and of course, the extremely cursed British SA-80. They're all branches or offshoots in what can be considered the AR-18's family tree. So where does that leave us today? Well, obviously, there is something undeniably cool about owning any kind of historical firearm, but unless you're willing to pay sometimes exorbitant prices and go on the hunt for semi-rare AR-180s when they pop up on buy-sell trade sites, you're probably going to be out of luck. However, that's precisely where Brownell's BRN-180 comes in. The folks at Brownell set out with a very simple goal, and that's to bring the AR-180 to the modern market with as little redesign as is possible, while making it functional with existing AR-15 platforms. Using the same short-stroke gas piston system, reciprocating charging handle, quick detach handguard, and captured bolt carrier group and bufferless design, the BRN-180 hits all of the high notes of the OG AR-180, while remaining fully functional with your existing AR-15 lower receiver rather than replicating the proprietary design of the original. However, your spurred brain can sleep soundly at night knowing that Brownells actually does produce an AR-180 style AR-15 lower receiver, which is definitely going to prevent people making fun of you at the range when they see that your lower receiver is far, and hey, that's not correct. From front to back, we've got a 16-inch barrel with a replica of the original AR-18's 3-pronged flash hider, and a sleek 14-inch M-LOK handguard featuring a Picatinny rail up top and M-LOK slots around the perimeter. As this is the Gen 2 BRN-180 upper receiver, it's also got an adjustable gas block, previously only found on the shorter barreled iterations, which gives you 2 settings to ensure that your gun is running correctly depending on conditions and ammunition. Previously, this was accomplished with a couple different types of piston cups that you would add depending on what you were doing, such as if you add a suppressor to the gun and you need an additional bit of help to get it to cycle, but no longer. Cups be gone. Another new Gen 2 feature is the single bolt handguard locking system, which allegedly provides much greater stability and alignment than the Gen 1 design during rapid firing when the barrel becomes quite hot. This isn't ever really a problem that we encountered on the Gen 1 BRN-180 that we've got kicking around the office, but it is nice to know that Brownells has headed that potential problem off at the pass. It also makes adjusting the gas block a little bit easier in the event that you don't have a longer flathead to get down inside the handguard itself. Likely one of the biggest things you'll notice on the receiver is the presence of a prominent charging handle riding off on the right side. As mentioned, this gun is entirely piston-driven, utilizing a bolt carrier that rides upon a pair of guide rods and is buffered in the rear with a built-in polymer buffer and molded-in steel plate. It's those guide rods that pretty much define the operation of the original AR-18, allowing the rifle to cycle without the use of an AR-15 style buffer tube assembly. This also means that field stripping reduces the gun down into comparatively few parts, though be aware that disassembly can send the guide springs flying off into your gun hovel if you're not prepared to catch them. Although it is initially a little bit weird to kind of get used to an AR-ish thing that does function with a reciprocating charging handle on the right-hand side, kind of more similar to an AK, so if you've got muscle memory for both, a little bit weird to get used to, but after you are used to it, it is actually pretty nice. Charging the rifle is surprisingly smooth, and doesn't require anywhere near the force of an AK to rack and send home. Although obviously having a huge chunk of reciprocating metal an inch or two from your face might be slightly uncomfortable for our left-handed shooters out there. It's worth noting that the bolt actually does lock on an empty mag, and the bolt release is fully functional despite the side-charging design. The BRN's dust cover is also quite prominent and is located a little bit further back than you'd find on a normal AR-15. In a particular bit of very specifically Californian problems, this can present an issue if you're trying to slap an upper on a lower that's got some kind of AR maglock or other type of bullet button-esque piece of hardware on it, as it'll prevent the two receiver halves from mating correctly. So obviously all of the features are pretty cool, but I'm sure a lot of you are wondering how it shoots. We put a couple hundred rounds through the BRN upper, mated with a Daniel Defense lower receiver, and honestly, it's a blast. Real or imagined, we're not quite sure, but it did kind of feel like the BRN's piston-driven system translates to slightly softer recoil impulse than you'd find on a standard direct impingement AR-15. Although obviously, we're still only firing 223 here, so that's not even super crazy to begin with. We did, however, notice that this thing gets pretty hot, seemingly more so than the other ARs we had out that day despite the 105-degree heat. We unfortunately didn't bring our laser thermometer thing out to the desert this time around to confirm, but it might be a good idea to glove up if you're going to be running the upper for any real length of time. The gun ran flawlessly for the duration of our time spent with it. We had no feed or extraction issues to speak of, running standard 55-grain Wolf Gold. Shooting groups with some nicer ammo and a Faxon lower with a single-stage hyperfire trigger, we got some pretty standard results. Also, as a side note, I have been yelled at for my pronunciation of Faxon enough that this is me hereby acknowledging that I'm wrong. It's actually pronounced Faxon. Please forgive me and my shortcomings. We're all human. I am still, however, going to die on the hill that it is pronounced carbine, not carbine, mostly because I find the rage comments pretty funny. Alright, back to groups. From Wolf to PMC to American Eagle to Federal Gold Medal, pretty much everything was in the 3 MOA-ish zone, with Federal Gold Medal providing the tightest group at approximately 2 MOA. Previously, our head editor was able to bag some pretty consistent sub-MOA shots with his Gen 1 BRN-180, though general internet consensus is that anything in the 2 to 2.5 range is probably going to be pretty standard. Again, we're not a channel that's ever super worried about a slight MOA difference here or there, and we were ringing steel consistently out to about 300 yards in the desert with no issue whatsoever. So where does all of that leave us? Chances are, if you are looking for details on the BRN-180 to begin with, you're probably some flavor of nerd that is a pretty big fan of the AR-18, and unless you are willing to go hunt down all of those legacy parts that can be kind of expensive or rare to come by, the Brownells BRN-180 is likely going to be your best shot to build something that approximates the same shape and design as the original AR-18 or AR-180. Considering its compatibility with standard AR-15 lower receivers, it's also not a terrible way to pick up a side-charging piston-driven upper receiver if that's something that you've been on the hunt for. All in all, we've really enjoyed our time with it, and we're always stoked anytime companies in the industry pony up and kind of go through the hassle to introduce new, weird, or niche products that don't sacrifice function for form. And if any of that sounds at all up your alley, we would reckon that you're going to have a blast with the Gen 2 BRN-180. Alright guys, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. There is lots more on the way, as always. Additionally, we've got new shirts. You can check them out at the link below. I'm wearing one right now. It's a pretty cool shirt. I would wear this shirt, even if I wasn't paid to promote it. My name is John with Pimp Out Tactical. We will see you next time. Got new shirts! Shirts! Shirts!
New shirts!
Shirts!